He told Erica that he was gonna find her and he's gonna kill her.
The courtroom can be a cluster for crazies, and no one is surprised. Let's not forget these are criminals. From a guy who threw his own feces on his lawyer to one who literally told the judge,
"You threatened my life."
Here are the craziest moments you'll ever see in a court. First, in a disturbing and quite literally smelly courtroom scene, Ricky Hand, a 46-year-old from Springfield, Ohio, caused quite a stir at the Clark County Common Pleas Court. He shocked everyone by throwing bottles filled with his own excrement and urine at his defense attorney. This incident took place after he was handed a 40-year prison sentence for a string of armed robberies. On the day of his sentencing, Hand, who was already in custody for multiple charges, managed to smuggle bottles of bodily fluids into the courtroom by concealing them in an arm sling. As Judge Richard O'Neill delivered the sentence, Hand erupted in anger.
Did you just give me 40 years? Sir? Yes. You just gave me 40 years. Well, guess what?
He then launched the contents of the bottles towards his attorney, hitting him and splattering nearby deputies.
Sir, what's this?
Deputies immediately subdued Hand, who was subsequently charged with retaliation, harassment with bodily fluid, and obstruction of official business. The Clark County Sheriff's Office confirmed that Hand had prepared for the attack by hiding multiple bottles on his person. Why would Ricky Hand even want to throw his feces? Just thinking about it is crazy. Despite reports that Hand had mentioned bringing feces to the sentencing, no search was conducted before he entered the courtroom. Clark County Sheriff Gene Kelly acknowledged the lapse and stated that an internal investigation was underway. Sheriff's Office policies typically mandate searches of individuals entering and leaving the courts, yet these protocols were not followed in Hand's case. Ricky Hand, already facing up to 52 years in prison for his crimes, was being sentenced for a series of offenses, including armed robbery and breaking and entering. His criminal activities had plagued Springfield with 14 business break-ins and robberies, where he used a knife and a fake gun to threaten victims. Detective Ron Jordan, involved in Hand's case, noted that Hand had initially been cooperative during the investigation, admitting to many of his crimes. Hand's criminal history includes a prior robbery conviction in 2011, for which he served 4 years in prison. Less than 6 months after his release, he resumed his criminal activities, leading to his latest conviction and the subsequent courtroom drama.
What's wrong with you? Man! 4 years of death sentence, man! I just gave the people all that.
This man was a crazy menace both in and out of court. Funny enough, this was not the first instance of such disruptive behavior in courtrooms. Nevertheless, in the end, he was sentenced to 40 years, and no amount of poo flinging was going to change that. But if you think this case is messy, this next case in Nevada shook the world when the accused attacked a sitting judge during sentencing. Deobra DeLone Redden, a 30-year-old Las Vegas felon who launched a violent attack on Judge Mary Kay Holthus during his sentencing. Redden, previously charged with felony battery for a brutal baseball bat assault, had been pleading for leniency, attempting to convince the judge of his efforts to reform his violent behavior. As Judge Holthus began to deliver the sentence, indicating that prison time was inevitable, Redden's demeanor drastically changed. When a policeman approached to handcuff him, Redden sprang from the defense table, jumped over the judge's bench, and violently tackled Judge Holthus. Witnesses described the judge's head hitting the wall and Redden striking her before he was subdued by court officials.
I appreciate that, but I think it's time that you get a taste of something else because I just can't with that history. In accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, this court...
In the chaos, Redden's actions caused Judge Holthus to seek shelter beneath her desk, covering her face as she curled up to protect herself. The courtroom erupted as court officers wrestled Redden to the ground, some reportedly throwing punches to restrain him. Redden, unshackled at the time due to not being in custody, had turned what was a sentencing hearing into a scene straight out of Mad Max Fury. Following the attack, Redden allegedly expressed extreme hostility towards Judge Holthus, telling correction officers he wanted to kill her, claiming she had it out for him, and labeling her as evil. Redden Redden was immediately jailed with a $54,000 bail for the assault and now faces an additional slew of charges, including extortion, coercion with force, and multiple counts of battery on a protected person. These new charges were not only related to the attack on Judge Holthus, but also to the assault on the officers who intervened. He just made his already messy case worse. Judge Holthus, who suffered minor injuries, returned to work the next day. According to Chief Judge Jerry Weezy, she was expected to continue with Redden's sentencing on the original baseball bat attack charge the following Monday. This case had seen Redden initially charged with assault, but later pleading guilty to a lesser charge of attempted battery, resulting in substantial injuries. Redden's criminal history has been full of patterns of violent offenses, including prior convictions for 3 felonies and 9 misdemeanors. However, there are people who believed his actions during sentencing shouldn't be taken into account when sentencing him.
He is supposed to be judged not on the behavior during the sentencing, but the behavior of that underlying case, which he was convicted of.
Well, the people he attacked in court may not share that sentiment. During a news conference, Judge Wees praised the swift actions of courtroom staff, particularly Michael Lasso, the judge's law clerk. Lasso was credited with being the primary person who pulled Redden off Judge Holthus, likely preventing more severe injuries. One court official required hospital treatment for a gash on his forehead and a dislocated shoulder sustained during the incident. A crazy, crazy incident for real. After all was said and done, he's looking at damn near 30 months for his original battery charge and 48 months for his courtroom flight. But right now, he's in prison for 4 years for a different case altogether. Like this case, our next one focuses on a fight in the courtroom. However, in this instance, it was the family of the victim attacking the accused. A dramatic and chaotic scene unfolded in a Louisville courtroom when the families of 2 murder victims confronted the accused killer, Paul Wade, during a preliminary hearing. The courtroom brawl, which resulted in 4 arrests, took place in Jefferson County District Court, where Wade is facing charges for the fatal shootings of Edward Lamont Smith, 26, and Alexis McCrary, 25, which occurred on September 10th in the Russell neighborhood. The tension escalated as Wade, dressed in an orange jumpsuit and handcuffed, was being escorted back to his holding cell after the hearing on Friday. Judge Ann Haney, who presided over the hearing, later recounted that Wade taunted the victims' families as he walked past them.
This is a little bit different. Mr. Eggert is retained on...
Quiet in courtroom.
Quiet.
This provocation led to an explosive reaction from the families, who lunged towards him in a desperate attempt to confront him.
You're gonna have to leave the courtroom. You have to...
We all family.
Okay, y'all got to not talk.
You can sense the tensions rising here.
Okay. No talking in the courtroom. That's all. Go ahead. Thank you, Your Honor.
Witnesses described a chaotic scene as several family members leaped over the courtroom barriers, screaming and shouting, trying to reach Wade. Court deputies scrambled to contain the situation as Wade, pressed against a wall, stood by, watching the drama. The courtroom erupted into a messy clash, with relatives climbing over public benches and even attempting to climb over the judge's desk. The situation took a dangerous turn when a man vaulted over Judge Haney's desk in pursuit of Wade. Wade, seizing the moment, ducked through an open door into the judge's chambers in an effort to escape the advancing relatives. One man, joined by at least one other, chased after him through the chambers. Judge Haney, visibly distressed, hit the panic button and repeatedly shouted for help as the chaos unfolded. The courtroom video captured her desperate cries of "Help! Help!" as the struggle continued. A teenage girl, an 8th grader shadowing the judge to learn about the judicial process, sat nearby, visibly shocked by the pandemonium. You can only imagine the shock in her mind as this happened. In the aftermath, arrest records indicated that pepper spray was deployed to regain control of the courtroom. The 4 individuals arrested, Joshua Whetstone, Monitra Kane, Isaiah Smith, and Joshua Smith, faced charges of disorderly conduct and obstructing governmental operations. Additionally, Isaiah and Joshua Smith were charged with assault and resisting arrest arrest for their roles in the crazy court scene. However, Judge Haney acknowledged that it was the first time the victims' families had seen Wade in custody, which likely contributed to the heightened emotions. She noted that Wade's taunt had incited the family members, leading to the sudden outburst. Haney expressed regret that the situation had escalated and suggested that measures such as replacing the missing door near the judge's bench and having more deputies present could have potentially made the incident less severe. Wade, who was arrested on October 13th, faces 2 counts of murder and charges of being a convicted felon in possession of a handgun. He has entered a not guilty plea. Much like this case, our next case is of a psychopath who drove his SUV into a group of people, felt no remorse, and made his court proceedings as chaotic as possible, even laughing at victim impact statements.
He told Erica that he was gonna find her and he's gonna kill her.
Next, we go down to Waukesha, Wisconsin, where Darrell Brooks, a Milwaukee resident, was sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms on Wednesday, November 16th. His crime? Driving his SUV into a Christmas parade on November 21st, 2021, killing 6 people and injuring dozens more. As Judge Jennifer R. Dorough handed down the sentence, she pointed out Brooks's lack of absolute remorse.
He plowed through 68 different people. He kept going until he got to the end.
The victims of this horrifying act ranged from young children to senior citizens. 8-year-old Jackson Sparks, 52-year-old Tamara Durand, and Jane Kulish, 71-year-old Leanna Lee Owen, 79-year-old Virginia Sorensen, and 81-year-old Wilhelm Hospel all lost their lives due to Brooks's reckless actions. In total, Brooks injured 69 people on that fateful day. During the trial, Brooks tried to claim that his actions were driven by mental health issues. However, Judge Dorough didn't accept this explanation. She mentioned that 4 experts evaluated the case and found no evidence to support the claim of not guilty due to mental illness. Judge Dorough then went on to talk about the disturbing facts of the case and Brooks's actions before the tragic event. In a particularly chilling part of the proceedings, it was revealed that Brooks had a violent confrontation with his ex-girlfriend Erica Patterson, who is also the mother of one of his daughters, just before the parade. Patterson testified that Brooks had struck her in the face while she was in his SUV.
He told Erica that he was gonna find her and he's gonna kill her.
Darrell Brooks faced a lot of charges, including 61 counts of recklessly endangering safety and 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide with the use of a dangerous weapon. Despite the gravity of his situation, Brooks chose to represent himself in court, a decision that added to the spectacle of his trial.
If you are allowed to represent yourself in this case, sir, you will not have attorneys assisting you. They are gone from this case. Do you understand that?
I think I would probably be better served representing myself.
Throughout the trial, Brooks was a disruptive presence. He frequently interrupted the judge, laughed at witnesses, and behaved erratically, leading to numerous delays. For instance, he had issues with the pronunciation of defendant.
I would like to provide the defendant and the court.
So that had to be said. The defendant. I got one ear that work and I heard that.
This is to benefit you, that
so it's
you
not.
understand
Ain't none of this to
witness.
benefit me.
His antics reached a climax when he engaged in a tense stare-down with Judge Dorough, prompting her to call for a break.
I need to take a break. This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. He pounded his fist. Frankly, it makes me scared.
Ultimately, Brooks's erratic behavior did nothing to reduce his sentence. He received 6 life terms for the homicides plus 17.5 years in prison for each of the 61 counts of reckless endangerment, amounting to over a century behind bars. During the emotional sentencing, Judge Dorough shared heartbreaking accounts from the families of the victims. Sherry Sparks, who lost her son Jackson in the attack, tearfully expressed the profound emptiness left by his absence, mentioning how every holiday would remind them of his absence. Before the sentencing, 45 individuals, including children, recounted the impact of the incident. Their stories vividly portrayed the devastation caused by Brooks's actions. Jason Peckloff, speaking for Catholic Communities of Waukesha, criticized Brooks for lacking remorse, stating that he stole their innocence that day. Jeff Rogers shared the lasting impact on his family after his sons narrowly escaped the attack, revealing the enduring trauma they faced. Before sentencing, Brooks delivered a speech, if you can call it that. He expressed gratitude towards his family family and concern for his children. He felt misunderstood, wishing others could see his true self, though his actions told a different story. He was going to spend the rest of his life in prison. Darrell Brooks may have been a menace during his court proceedings, but the accused in this next case took it to a different level.
You threatened my life, you wanna take my kids from me?
In a courtroom drama that seemed more fit for a Hollywood script than reality, Alan McCarty Jr., a foul-mouthed Floridian man, was handed a prison sentence for threatening to kill a judge. His outbursts and vulgar behavior during the trial earned him an additional 10 days in jail, nearly leading the judge to duct tape his mouth shut to control him. Alan McCarty Jr., 36, from Milton, Florida, was convicted in August for threatening the life of Circuit Judge Stacia Warren after a ruling in a child custody case. His violent threats didn't stop there. He also targeted a prosecutor's unborn child.
I'm going to tell you to be quiet. You need to be quiet. There's not going to be a second time. If there's a second time, I'm going to duct tape.
The courtroom was a battleground from the start. McCarty erupted with profanities as Judge Foxman read his sentence.
You're a liar.
Thank you very much, sir.
McCarty screamed, prompting Foxman to have him removed from the courtroom. Even in his absence, McCarty's voice echoed through the courthouse as he continued to hurl curses and racial slurs from a separate room where he watched the proceedings through one-way glass.
You threatened my life.
McCarty's disruptions began long before his sentencing. His tirades were so persistent that Judge Foxman previously warned he would duct tape McCarty's mouth if he continued. At one point, McCarty crudely suggested that the judge perform a sex act on him, a proposition Foxman politely declined.
You want to take all my paperwork from me? Lock me in a cell naked all night?
Despite being moved to a separate room during the trial, McCarty's behavior didn't improve. He insulted his public defender, Ryan Belanger, refused to dress in proper courtroom attire, and continued to shout offensive remarks.
Brought your dress today, you little fucking prick? You wanna take my kids from me and act like that? Fuck you in that bitch!
The jury, composed of 3 women and 3 men, took just 30 minutes to convict McCarty on multiple charges, including threats of extortion and corruption by threat against a public official. No surprise there. His threats extended beyond Judge Warren. He also insulted dispatchers in phone calls. McCarty, who watched the verdict from his confined space, remained uncharacteristically silent as the guilty verdicts were read.
You fucking
Back room.
suck my dick! No, I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting.
McCarty's threats stemmed from his anger over losing custody of his children. He claimed his threats were merely words, not meant to be taken seriously. Assistant State Attorney Ashley Terwilliger stressed how serious McCarty's actions were, mentioning that Judge Warren was genuinely afraid for her life. McCarty's children had been living in Texas for years, and he hadn't seen them since 2020. Throughout the trial, McCarty's behavior was a constant challenge. He repeatedly interrupted the proceedings, refused to cooperate with his defense, and even claimed his rights were being violated as he was held in a separate room. His extreme actions led to a heightened security presence, including an electric belt worn under his jumpsuit capable of delivering a stun if needed. During the trial, McCarty made alarming threats in recorded calls, vowing to execute Judge Warren in the street. Warren testified about the fear she felt upon learning of McCarty's threats. Despite McCarty's frequent interruptions, the courtroom remained composed.
All right, raise your right hand. I'm going to swear you in.
I'm not under oath.
That's your bad finger. I didn't appreciate that.
In the end, despite his misbehaving, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Next is a case that feels like it was brought straight out of a primetime TV. A cold case, an investigation spanning decades, and a psychopathic murderer. A case that took decades to resolve, Joseph Zieler, a double murderer from Florida, was sentenced to death for the brutal 1990 killing of 11-year-old Robin Cornell and 32-year-old Lisa Story. Zieler, 61, stunned the courtroom not only with his chilling crimes, but also with his macabre courtroom antics, including scrawling "killer" on his false teeth and hurling vile insults at the victims' families. Let's take a trip back. On a tragic night in 1990, Jan Cornell left her daughter Robin in the care of her friend Lisa Story at their their Cape Coral condominium. Returning the next morning, she found both had been savagely murdered. The case went cold for 26 years until a 2016 DNA match linked Joseph Zieler, then jailed on an unrelated assault charge, to the crime scene. Zieler's trial revealed the full extent of his brutality. He had not only suffocated his victims, but also sexually assaulted them. In an attempt to explain the presence of his DNA, Zieler concocted an outrageous lie, claiming he had sex with Jan Cornell months before the murders. This falsehood was swiftly debunked by prosecutors, who pointed out the improbability of DNA remaining detectable for such an extended period. Zieler responded with a vile slur, calling Jan Cornell a pig who never washed her sheets.
Well, she's calling me a rapist and a murderer, so what, I can't write that? I mean, she's calling me a rapist and a murderer, and I'm calling her a pig for not washing her sheets.
Throughout the trial, Zieler displayed a disturbing lack of remorse, often taunting Jan Cornell and others in the courtroom. His bizarre behavior culminated in a stunt where he appeared with "killer" crudely scrawled on his false teeth, a sick display meant to shock and provoke. Jan Cornell, who had never given up hope of finding her daughter's killer, described Zieler as remorseless and evil. In the years following the murders, Cornell was advised to keep her daughter's body intact for potential forensic evidence. This decision haunted her, but in 2010, after investigators confirmed the body was no longer needed for the case, she had Robin cremated. On the day of Zieler's sentencing, Cornell found solace in telling her daughter, "You can rest now," but the drama reached its peak on the day of sentencing. Zieler suddenly attacked his attorney, Kevin Shirley, with an elbow strike to the head. Bailiffs swiftly subdued Zieler, who was then removed from the courtroom.
I'm sorry, are you okay?
I'm fine.
Relax, don't talk, relax.
I used to box. I've taken a lot better shots than that.
A jury had previously found Zieler guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. 10 out of 12 jurors recommended the death penalty. Zieler's behavior throughout the trial, including yelling at the jury and making vulgar gestures, only solidified their decision. State. Attorney Amira Fox pointed out how Joseph Zieler's sentencing brought much-needed closure for Robin Cornell and Lisa Story. She mentioned that Zieler's punishment truly shows how serious and awful these crimes were. The case had haunted the family for nearly 30 years. Jan Cornell, a grieving mother, expressed both relief and sadness upon finally getting justice for her daughter and friend after such a long wait. Even though the crimes were terrible, Zieler's conviction and death sentence brought some sense of closure. Thanks for joining us today. Check out other thrilling court videos on the screen.